Welcome back to Sports on Tap, live from Z's Cream and Bean in Hinckley, Ohio. And if you want to be more involved with Sports on Tap, go to our Facebook page. We're on Twitter at SOT Podcast. Instagram.
And not only you can hear our podcast on neosportsinsiders.com.
That's right. We're part of the NEO Sports Insiders Network, and really good content there. They're also on Facebook and Twitter. All kinds of
You
updates.
might also be seeing some of the guys here on Sports on Tap writing some articles on NEO's.
Getting published.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that I can't wait to read some articles from these guys here.
Well, it's a miracle I can even put a sentence together.
And it's a miracle Rob can read.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, with that Brunswick education, it's
It's
50-50
really come in
either
handy.
way.
Not false.
It's really come in handy.
not untrue.
We're gonna talk a little Cleveland Browns
drop
football.
in.
That's right. And normally we're talking a lot of local high school sports, but tonight we're talking a little Cleveland sports, and we're going to talk about the Browns. And a few moves are being made,
Very
to say
few.
the least. We haven't talked about the Browns in a while. We know Hugh Jackson, as head coach, is actually going to some of the pro scouting days.
Imagine that.
Yeah, novel idea.
Pro days with some of the
glad
quarterbacks.
that-
It's unbelievable.
I'm glad that our coaching staff and general manager have gone to more scouting combines and pro days than we have.
Yeah.
That's a positive.
And more than the last regime did in 2 years.
But do you know what? Do you know what the nice thing about the last regime? They were able to watch it on video, though.
Right.
I mean, right from
You
their
can
own
see everything.
laptop.
Bathroom's right there,
Yeah.
too.
Well,
You
the
used to go
NFL Network broadcast
restroom.
it live,
You know?
so.
And you
Food's
don't,
cheaper.
And you don't have to worry about doing that whole getting to know the player you're about to draft. If they're a winner.
No one
you
does
know,
face-to-face interaction anymore anyways.
Just,
Do you know
if Justin Gilbert actually wants to play or just get paid, or if Johnny Manziel's a freaking head case.
I mean,
You know,
at
you
least
don't
you
need-
know what kind of personalities they were going for.
Right. Well, splash in the pan doesn't really do much for me.
But on a brighter note, the Browns did sign RG3, and I'm interested
Okay.
to see some of the. Hey,
That's an interesting way you put that.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Trying to be positive here.
Okay.
But I'm interested to see what you guys think. The Browns signing RG3. They signed, a few guys that are, I guess you could say, veterans in the league. A linebacker from the Jets has come over, and
I really like that pick.
and he led their team in tackles, or was second on their team in tackles. But a lot of things really going on with this team. I think it's a little bit different. We'll talk about some of the acquisitions and then talk about what you guys think. The draft is still a month away, but the speculation. I'm interested to see what you guys think there. But how about some of the new signings? With this regime and the approach they're taking so far this year.
Well, I like what the Browns are doing. This is something that actually needed to be done a long time ago. And I know a lot of people are making a big deal about how the Browns lost a lot of their key players. However, they were key players on a 3-13 team. It would have been nice to maybe keep a Mitchell Schwartz, who is still a young player, going into his second contract. Those are the kind of guys that you want to keep. And the Browns admitted they dropped the ball, not locking them up earlier. But let bygones be bygones. You need to move on. Now, I really like the RG3 signing. And I don't think he's going to be the savior. I don't think he's, I like the fact that he seems like he's hungry to prove that he can be a player in this league. He's already going to see a quarterback coach that has coached Tom Brady in the offseason. He's already reached out to some of the veterans on the Browns. And, he's coming to prove himself, and that's the kind of players that the Browns need, not guys that come in here just to get paid. They need the guys to prove and want to win, and I still think the signing of RG3 won't deter their plans of picking a quarterback at number 2. I like Hugh Jackson, and I really like what the team is doing, and I'm trying to temper my excitement because I've done this, 5 or 6 times before. I got really excited about the new regime, but you could tell Hugh Jackson is the football guy. He's got a plan, and he's on board with this front office, and I know a lot of people out there are really concerned about the analytics, and I think analytics will make some roster decisions. but I think it'll all come down to Hugh Jackson and how it's going to go. Now, here's a little thing that I was thinking about. Once the Browns signed RG3, obviously Josh McCown is not going to be a part of this team. I can see a somewhat of a draft day trade of Josh McCown and possibly a Joe Thomas going to a place like Denver for the first pick.
Like a package?
Like a package.
Although they already said Joe Thomas isn't going to be traded.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I mean,
they said the plan is not to trade Joe Thomas.
well,
Plans
that's true.
do change.
Yeah, but that would, I mean,
I highly see it unlikely
Yeah.
that Joe Thomas is going to be traded.
Let's play that
But
breaking news clip again.
no, that's just a thought.
Like it.
One of the thoughts I had. So
I like the fact that you thought. I don't like the thought itself. But
right, I don't like it either. You know, I hate to get rid of a Hall of Fame left tackle, but if you're going to get rid of him, now would be the time, because the Browns aren't going to be very good next year. Let's all face that. We all know that. But
I'd be sad if they got rid of McCown, though. I think he can be valuable. You know, if we did bring in a rookie, I feel like he could be pretty valuable. I don't know if
As a third-string quarterback?
I
mean,
don't
that's what
know
he would
necessarily
be.
if he'd be the third string. I mean,
no, I think you have RG3 and you let him do it and you compete, and people are like, well, that's going to be bad for the rookie.
so, but if
If-
RG3 gets hurt, you know,
Then
he's
you have-
been hurt.
It's not an if. It's going to be a when, probably.
Yeah.
But then you have
But
your
that's the thing,
Then you
then-
have your rookie.
I mean, and to throw him in the fire, you
Yeah,
know,
but
after,
if-
say, a half a season.
But if they didn't have RG3, or they, you know, there's a lot of teams. Look at last year. You had Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota. They went right into the fire. The team sucked, but they played relatively well. And if the second pick overall is any good, he will compete and possibly even beat out RG3. I mean, it's not.
I think the quarterbacks are, I don't know, to me they're a little bit different this year than, I mean, and maybe they're not, but I thought last year with Winston and Mariota, I thought those quarterbacks were a little bit different. They have different styles. I thought they stayed respectively in college where they were pretty much NFL ready. I thought going in, you know, everybody said Winston was going to be more ready than Mariota. They were pretty close, I would say. You know, they both had their bumps in the road.
Well, they said Mariota coming out of college, there's a lot of people that didn't think that his game would translate to the NFL. It was a spread quarterback, and he did a relatively good job. And then for Jameis, people were like, does he have the head to be a NFL franchise quarterback? And he changed that perception all around, and he was that.
Well, because I think when you look at the quarterbacks last year versus this year, Mariota and Jameis Winston were so far, you know, so much above the second tier. The issue that we're looking at now is when you look at the top prospects at the quarterback position in this draft, which are pretty much Goff and Wentz.
Yep.
And then you look at a guy like Paxton Lynch, Kevin Hogan, Connor Cook, all these other quarterbacks, Cardale Jones. There's not that much separation. And I think that's the one thing that's striking to me when you look at this quarterback class is that there's not one or two picks out there that just blow you away. Yeah,
The quarterback side.
right on the quarterback side, absolutely. I'm talking the quarterback, which is the position of need for the Cleveland Browns since 1999 and before. I just think when you look at a guy like Jared Goff, or you look at a guy like Carson Wentz, or you look at a guy like Paxton Lynch, they have roughly the same type of skill set. They're big quarterbacks, not like an RG3 who's not, you know, Johnny Manziel size, but he's not, you know, he's not Ben Roethlisberger either, and he's a slighter guy. He's a slighter individual. The signing of RG3 for me just provides a little bit more stability in that quarterback room. Look, we have a guy who's still a relatively young quarterback with a good skill set, came out of a bad situation in Washington, and that was as bad a situation as the Brown situation was last year. Dan Snyder runs that just like Jerry Jones without any sort of success. He's had, you know, he came in with Mike Shanahan and his son and initially had a great year. Then Jay Gruden comes in, doesn't want anything to do with him, and that's Jay Gruden's, you know, prerogative. I think Robert Griffin III, to me, has to, and I guarantee if I'm Hugh Jackson, he's got to show me that want to win, because we've had quarterbacks that come out that are more worried about their personal image, and for a lot of times that was the knock on RG3, was he says that all the right things, and he's a great dynamic player, but as soon as he has to read a defense, or as soon as he has to make a decision, or as soon as he has to, you know, not sit in the pocket and progress through his reads, that's where he faltered a little bit. And everyone says, oh, he's working with Tom Brady's, quarterback coach. Well, a lot of guys have probably worked with Tom Brady's quarterback coach, but there's only one Tom Brady, because Tom Brady has that just insane desire to win. And I really hope that RG3 realizes that that's what you need to separate yourself at this level. Given that, I really do think Hugh Jackson is saying, look, I need a quarterback that's young, that can move, because I'm not going to have an offensive line that can protect him very well this year. My running game is going to be minimal to average at best. I don't have a lot of weapons, so I need a quarterback that, if things break down, can escape the pocket. We don't have the ability. We don't have the receivers. If Josh Gordon comes back, great. But we don't have the receivers that can just create separation downfield. Gary Barnidge is a great weapon, but when he's your only weapon, he pretty much he gets neutralized off the snap. And that's the problem that we're going to see this year. And I think Hugh Jackson's saying, look, I need a guy that can protect himself, that has the athletic ability to get away and maybe make some plays happen, more so than Johnny Manziel did last year or any other year in his entire NFL career. Because I'm sorry, I'll take Robert Griffin III scrambling any day over Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same with Josh McCown. But I'm with you. I would prefer to see him not leave or not trade him, because he played pretty well for us when he was playing.
Yeah.
But durability issues with him are also an issue. And kind of to your point, Sean, I mean, you're asking him to – and he won't be asked to start. He'd be more of a in my world. You have RG3 start, McCown back up, and your rookie just sits, and he doesn't touch the field at all, which that was supposed to happen a couple of years ago, I think, with Colt McCoy, until all those quarterbacks went down.
Yeah,
and then he ended up having to start as a rookie as the third stringer. I don't think you want to put your rookie in a situation like this. I mean, it has not succeeded for the Browns since we've come back. And I understand that Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota weren't exactly in the better in much better situations than the Browns, but their talent level is much higher than that of presumably a Jared Goff or a Carson Wentz, just on paper. So if they're going to get rid of McCown. If you get a draft pick for him, that's great. And I know that's what they're trying to do. You need to accumulate draft picks, and then you can use those draft picks either populate your team or trade to get better picks. And I have a feeling that this analytics team isn't going to mess it up.
No.
Much like Farmer and Pettin did. To Joe Banner's credit, before he was fired, that's what he was doing. He accumulated 11 picks for the 2014 draft, I think it was, and we packaged like 4 of them total to get Gilbert and Manziel. Yeah. Unnecessarily did that at that. There's no reason to move up and down to get Gilbert, and there's no reason to move up to get Manziel at all. And I don't think you're going to see this team of Sashi Brown, Paul DePodesta, and Andrew Berry do anything like that. And Rob, going back to what you said about the analytic part of it, and the analytics is going to make some roster moves, but it's not going to be a major. In my mind, it's not going to be roster spots 1 through 20. It'll be 53, 52, 51, which are spots that need to be filled, but they're not going to be talked about, or as much time is going to be spent on those as the first subset of players. Which I think that Ray Farmer and Mike Pettin spent more time trying to determine that than they are trying to figure out who their best players are.
I think I look at the whole analytics thing, and everyone says, well, they're going to run their team based on analytics. Well, I mean, I think if you look at the way at least the way I see they're using it, is if all things are equal. Let's say I'm looking at 2 players, and like you said, we're not talking roster spot 1. We're talking roster spot 36. And it's between 2 defensive linemen, and everything is equal. What do the analytics tell you? Is it because this guy's played this type of caliber? Whatever that analytics says, whatever player that analytics say pick or go with, I think that's what it's going to be used for. When there's those decisions where you want to have something to fall back on. Hey, this guy had more sacks, or is better at this type of coverage, or whatever it is. I think that's where the analytics are going to come into play. If it becomes down to all things being equal, what do the analytics say? I think it's going to drive some decision making. I don't think it's going to be the primary decision making tool. I think it's going to be one of them.
Exactly. And the final decision-making tool will be Hugh Jackson.
Yeah.
Because he is the football guy.
Who was a de facto GM when he was with the Raiders.
Yeah.
I mean, at that time he ran that team for the last 8 for that
And he went
year.
8-8, did he
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
In a pretty tough division too.
He had Jason Campbell playing winning football, but before, of all people and of all teams, the Browns messed that up for him.
Yeah.
Go figure. You know, the one thing that I would be worried about, you know, we trade Joe Thomas. I mean, and I think he deserves a say probably at this point. But I would be nervous. You know, we get a rookie quarterback, and he's the second-string quarterback. I mean, right now we still need like 3. I mean, we have an offensive line, but guys that are kind of unproven. You know, Cam Irving, we don't know what he can do because he was all over the place on the O-line, so he really didn't have a good chance to.
The coaching
learn.
staff didn't do him any favors
Right.
last year either.
Well, their offensive line coach was fired before the season
and
started.
that didn't help.
Plus, you had him learning 3 positions.
Right.
But that's
Yeah.
what scares me a little bit is, you know, I'm interested to see what moves the Browns make. I know they're still on that Wisniewski. He was a center at Tampa. He was from Oakland and worked with Hugh Jackson. He's still out there, and he missed 3 games in the last 5 years. Has been consistently good at the center position that I wish that they would just go and sign. But I feel like the offensive line, they have to start there. And then, you know, in the draft, there's opportunities to draft some good wide receivers and get some weapons. I think they're going to go pretty offensive heavy in the draft because I feel like Jim O'Neill really misused his defense last year. He didn't put the players in the best positions to really shine. And now that, you know, this Browns team has some experience on the offensive side with Pep Hamilton and Al Saunders there. They know, I think they'll know how to utilize players. So I could see them going pretty offensive. You're going to get defensive players in this draft, but I could see them going offensive heavy in the draft and picking up like they did, you know, some players through free agency that might be under the radar players, but solid players that the defensive coordinators and defense can work with. And I think it's going to be a little bit different defensively. I mean, last year Jim O'Neill did a terrible job. I still can't believe that Chip Kelly hired him as San Francisco. Maybe he can do a better job, but he's the defensive coordinator there, and I still can't figure out
Unfathomable.
if he watched this last season, you know, yeah, let's hire Jim O'Neill. He did a great job last year.
Highest paid defense in the league, worst performing defense in the league.
But,
I mean,
and Joe Hayden, you know, maybe was injured. You know, he's
Yeah,
having
but-
surgery in the offseason. But,
at
you know,
times
there's still
it looked
talent
like they couldn't
there.
line up right. I mean, let's be honest. At times it looked like they didn't know what coverage they were in. They didn't know who was blitzing. You have Paul Kruger covering a tight end. That's bad defensive
Yeah.
planning. I don't
Not
care
good.
who you are.
Well, and a couple positives. I mean, it just came out, whether it was today or yesterday, that Barkevius Mingo
Yeah.
has really added on some weight.
Added 20
this-
pounds. He's 260, I think they said.
Yeah, he's 260 now, and if he can be that athletic and actually be strong, he could be your edge rusher that, you know, he was drafted number 6 overall to be. And that's a positive to me because right there you're having players that are really trying to prove and work at their craft and become better, and that's what you need. And over the past couple of years, you really felt like you didn't have that. You really just felt like you had a bunch of guys here who were just here just to get paid. And now it's getting to the point where you're signing younger guys who are going on their second contract that are trying to work and get hungry and get better so they can get paid.
Mm-hmm.
I'd much rather have a bunch of young guys who are trying to get paid than a bunch of
Guys who did get paid.
guys that did get paid.
I don't think it was a lack of effort though on the defense's part last year. I think genuinely they were put in bad positions.
Oh,
and
I
They
agree.
weren't put in positions to succeed, and
And
I
I-
believe the defense I believe Patton when he says, "Hey, the effort's there. They're just not making plays, or they're just not in good spots," and that's obviously on him as a coach.
I didn't
but
mean to, paint it with a broad brush, but I mean, you do have a lot of players like Carlos Dansby, who's an older guy that, played very well for the Browns, signed with Cincinnati, but, he's an older guy. So Browns are going younger.
Yes.
But then you have guys like Justin Gilbert, we mentioned.
Haven't heard much about him so far.
Yeah, and other guys on the team, offense and defense, and even special teams. So it's going to take a couple years, but they're going to build this team through the draft, using analytics, using Hugh Jackson. The only thing that I hope for is it lasts more than 2 years.
Yes.
It's
That's
It's
the
got
key.
to. Got to.
That's the key.
I have a feeling that Jimmy Haslam is like. I really do feel like Jimmy Haslam settled for Mike Pettin and Ray Farmer because he was too new as the owner. Not a lot of people knew him, or he didn't even know how he wanted to structure this franchise. And I think now he's kind of figured it out. Hey, I need a winner. I need a coach in here. I need to borrow a page from my neighbors to the south and be patient. I mean, Marvin Lewis is the longest tenured coach in the NFL for a reason, because Mike Brown in Cincinnati was very patient. He's still very patient. I mean, look, the Cincinnati Bengals, and I hate to bring this up because I really don't like Cincinnati, but they were where the Browns were when they hired Marvin Lewis. They were basically viewed as a train wreck in the front office. They couldn't keep players. No one wanted to go to Cincinnati, and now
That's the criminals.
Yeah,
Well-
I was going to say couldn't keep players out of jail.
right, but and it took a while for Marvin Lewis to get that turned around. But now look at them; they're a perennial power in the AFC North. They have, and a lot of that is attributable to Hugh Jackson. So it's not. I think Jimmy Haslam swallowed a little bit of pride and said, "Look, I got to go with what works." Thankfully, he didn't go anywhere east to his former. Because I don't like anybody in gold and black because you look ridiculous. But hey, orange and black is not as bad as black and gold. So that's my thing. So
Well, let's wait and see what happens. It's going to be interesting as the draft gets closer. Maybe we can touch upon what's going
Quick,
on in the
guys.
draft.
Who is your quick mock number 2 pick?
Ed Dick,
go.
Brunswick.
Carson Wentz.
Sean.
Jared Goff.
Rob?
I'm going to go with Carson Wentz.
I'm on the Jared Goff bandwagon right now.
Oh,
Well,
2 and 2.
Watch him throw him for a loop, and then they go Joey Bosa.
Or Jalen Ramsey.
I wouldn't be
There
upset
you
with
go.
either of those picks either, really.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Either way, take what you think is the best. If it's a franchise quarterback, best player. We'll see. All right, we're Sports on Tap, live from Z's Cream and Bean. Want to thank you for listening. Until next time, adios.
See you
Later.
Saturday.
See,
Saturday. That's right.
Quick turnaround for us, folks.
Yeah.
That's right. See ya.
Do we get overtime for that?